So I originally wasn't going to be making a 2026 TBR, but in January at the beginning of the year, I'm just so enthusiastic about the books that I'm potentially going to be reading in the upcoming year that I decided to throw one together anyway. However, I'm not doing a 26 in 2026 because I've put together a list of 10 books. I feel like that is a little bit more achievable. And honestly, I probably won't read every single book on this list. And so I knew that selecting 26 books, that is potentially a quarter or more than a quarter of what I would read in the entire year. And it just felt a little bit silly because I knew I wasn't going to get through them. So we're going to do 10, and I have picked these books for specific reasons. I may not be disclosing the reasons in this video, but essentially there is a project I have in mind or a trip I have coming up or some specific reason that I envision myself picking up these books throughout the year. Some of them will be apparent to you instantly. You'll know why I have selected them. They may be in line with some things I've been doing recently, and others you may just have to wait and see. But one of the most important things that is definitely happening in 2026 is my upcoming trip to South Korea with Trover Trip. FYI, if you were even considering jumping on that trip, there's only I think 4 spaces available, and it does close to new bookings on the 7th. So if you want to join us, then be quick and snap up one of those final spaces. But every time I do a Trover trip, I try and take books with me or load my Kindle with books that are in line with that trip. So obviously for South Korea, I'm going to be reading South Korean fantasy, and I'm so excited because the books that I've selected are ones that I have wanted to read for a really long time, and I just haven't had a concrete excuse to get around to them. But in 2026, I am trying to prioritize books that I'm excited about and try and avoid making excuses of why I shouldn't read the thing that I want to read in any specific moment, and these have now jumped to the top of my TBR. But something else that I'm doing aside from picking a reading list for my trip is also trying to learn just a little bit of Korean with the help of the sponsor of today's video, which is Rosetta Stone. So Rosetta Stone is an all-in-one language learning program that was established over 30 years ago to help learners build fluency in 25 different languages. The thing that I really like about Rosetta Stone is that it feels like a very gentle approach to learning a new language, which for somebody like me who hasn't even attempted a new language really since I was in school, I like how natural, seamless and organic the learning process feels. And what I mean by this specifically is that they use a method called dynamic immersion, which essentially mimics the way that you learn language as a child. So you're presented with images and then the translation, and you have to kind of use the context of what you're seeing to match the phrases to the specific images that you're presented with. This encourages you to think in your new language before you're really trying to speak it, and I feel like you start to pick things up subconsciously this way, which feels a little bit less taxing on my brain. As well as the lessons being broken down into bite-sized chunks that you can fit into any schedule, I really love that the units are broken down into sections. So you start off with the basics, and then you can move through categories like work, school, travel, greetings. So if there is a specific area that you would like to focus on, if for example like me you're preparing for a trip, you can move to that unit to learn some of the phrases that you think that you might need. And as well as immersive lessons, Rosetta Stone also provides you with additional content such as stories that are written in your new language, and also live stream lessons so that you can continue to build upon the foundations of what you've already learned, utilizing the skills a little bit differently to interpret language in different mediums. So if learning a new language is one of your 2026 goals, or if like me you are currently preparing for a trip, then it is time to get started. You can click on the exclusive link down in my description box or scan the QR code on screen to get over 60% off an unlimited lifetime subscription, giving you access to all 25 of Rosetta Stone's languages so that you can start your new language journey today. Thank you of course to Rosetta Stone for sponsoring this video. So I'm taking more than these 2 books with me on my trip, but there are 2 Korean fantasies that I have owned for a very, very long time and have just not gotten around to. The first of those, and the one that I've had the longest, is Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. This one was a very popular young adult fantasy when it was published back in, I want to say 2019. I'm so right. Damn, look at me go. But this one is actually, I think, at least partially set in Seoul, which is really exciting because I am visiting Seoul. And it is following a girl who is a gumiho, and which is a nine-tailed fox. And she survives by consuming the life force, or like the energy of men. However, to get by and not compromise her conscience, she only takes the lives of men that are criminals. But one day she sees a boy who is being attacked by a goblin, and she reveals herself, which is breaking like her mother's cardinal rule, to save his life. However, she loses her bead, which is like, I think, her gumiho soul, and she needs to be able to get that back. And I think that these two team up to do it together. I heard really good things about this when it was published, and I'm still really excited to get to it. I do like a lot of Asian fantasy, specifically Japanese fantasy, but I have been getting into K-dramas a lot recently and loving them. So what I'm hoping for from this book, but especially the next one, is to have kind of like the energy of a K-drama channeled into book form. And if that is even remotely true, I just know I'm going to eat this one up. The next one is the one that I'm the most excited for. When I hauled this, a bunch of people in the comments said that it sounded like the start of a K-drama. That was before I'd started watching K-dramas, but now that I'm a fan, I'm even more excited to get to this one. And that is The God and the Gumiho by Sophie Kim. So this one is quite self-explanatory because one of the characters is a god and one is a gumiho, and they have to team up to capture a demon of darkness who has escaped from the underworld. That is all I know about this, but to be fair, the synopsis on this one is tiny. Like, I don't have a lot of information to go on, but I think it's like the design and the art style in here that really sold me on it. I'm so excited for this one. I hope it's set in Seoul as well. I actually don't know. It doesn't specify, but if it was, that would also be amazing. So I do have a couple of like long running book clubs that I'm committed to, as you guys know. So I thought it would be quite sensible to add a couple of those books into this TBR. So the first one, of course, is going to be for Catch Up Book Club. And in case you missed it, I did post a couple of months ago that we were going to be adding on a trilogy to the current round of Catch Up Book Club. And this is great news for anybody who is either intimidated by epic fantasy or who hasn't been able to join in with Catch Up Book Club yet, because we do typically read series, or I guess worlds, where there is more than one series set in the same world. So we've just read Jungwin's Banished Lands, and because we enjoyed it so much, I thought that we may as well add on Jungwin's other trilogy, which is the Bloodsworn Saga. So the book that I'm including in this video is, I think it's The Shadow of the Gods is the first one, but we are of course going to be reading the entire trilogy, and the first live show is going to be in March. So if you would like to get involved, I will of course leave the announcement video linked for you so that you can check out all of the details. But this one is inspired by Norse mythology. I've heard amazing things about the Bloodsworn Saga. I know that Jungwin writes really strong familial relationship, and he typically does like a father-child, specifically father-son relationship really well, but I believe that one of the main characters we're following in this series is a mother. So I'm really excited to see if the dynamic changes any with that. Honestly, I can't really tell you more about this series than that. I've heard that it's more in line with the Blood and Bone series than The Faithful and the Fallen, with a smaller selection of characters, a little bit maybe faster paced, but I'm really excited to see what Jungwin does in this new world. And then for my Patreon book club, which is the Alpha Ho book club, we do read-alongs of Romantasy series, and we're currently doing the Legends of Thesmar by Helen Shora. So I'm going to be adding book 2 of the series, which I need to read very, very soon, which is Vows and Ruins. Blood and Steel is a reread for me, so the first new book in this series I'm going to be exploring is Vows and Ruins. So this one is of course a romantasy, and it is set in a world where women are no longer allowed to be warriors because there was a prophecy that a woman that wields a blade was going to bring about the end of the world. However, our main character wants nothing more than to become one of the legendary warriors of Thesmar, and she ends up accidentally doing a favor for the king, and when he asks her like what boon she would like in return, she asks if she can train with the warriors of Thesmar. So the king agrees, but it's been so long since women have trained that she faces a lot of sexism when she's trying to join this like warrior school, and she is actually assigned this big like surly stoic legend of Thesmar as her mentor during this entire process. I really enjoyed book 1. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a very promising start to a series, and so I am excited to continue, and we are going to be reading the like standalone spin-off as well, which is Slaying the Shadow Prince or something along those lines. I'll put it here. Or even though that's not the official installment on this TBR, I will also be reading this. Speaking of rereads and also sequels, there is only one other project that I've kind of continuously been working on and I'm planning to continue to do so, and that is of course the Reread and Resume project. This one is super low-key on my channel, but I made a video with 10 series where I had already read book 1, really enjoyed it, but I didn't continue on with the series for whatever reason. So now I would like to go back, reread the first book in the series and complete the series like very shortly afterwards and hold myself accountable to actually doing so. So in January, I picked the second series that I'm going to be reading for this, and that is the Mirror Realm cycle by Ariel Kaplan. So book 1, as I said, will be a reread for me, but I will be reading The Republic of Salt and hopefully the third book as well, of course, for the first time. So this one is a criminally underrated series in my opinion. I'm excited to see how I feel once I reread book 1, because you know when you are so enthusiastic about something but then it's been a while and it's like, did I enjoy that as much as I feel like I did? I'm so excited to find out whether that is the case. But I always recommend this for fans of the Daevabad series by S.A. Chakraborty and also the Winter Night trilogy by Catherine Arden. This one is set in a fantastical depiction of medieval Spain, and specifically at the time when Christianity was forcing Jewish people to leave the city. So they were told that they could either convert to Christianity or they had to leave. And our two main characters are Jewish and they are leaving the city in a caravan, but one of them has this magical affliction where she can speak but she can't shout, and she can walk but she can't run. And so she's falling further and further behind this caravan, and somebody sees that and takes advantage of this. And the other main character sees that, so he follows them to try and help her, and he sees her disappear through the pomegranate gate into a different realm. So he then teams up with her grandmother to try and get her back, where she's actually having a grand old time with all of these magical creatures in a mirror realm, currently living on a crumbling estate with a surly lord and his nephew. There's a couple of subscription box books that I would really like to get to in the year. The first one of those is The Bone Readers by Jackson Ford. This one is from Fairy Loot's Epic subscription, and I don't know if I'm going to love this because it's a different kind of fantasy I feel than I typically reach for. But the gist of this one is that it is following a group of people that live in these grasslands called the Bone Raiders, and there's a new great Khan in the grasslands that is trying to wipe out all of the raiders. And one of the characters of this book feels like the only way that her people can survive is if they learn to ride the fire-breathing lizards that are also inhabiting the grasslands. So I'm intrigued to see how this plays out. Obviously there's going to be a war, but the synopsis implies that the focus is on taming the lizards. So we'll see. I'm excited to explore this one. The other one is the new Witcher prequel, which is The Crossroads of Ravens by Andrzej Sapkowski. This one was part of the Broken Binding's newest subscription, which is their sci-fi and fantasy sub. I think that you can read this one without having read the rest of the Witcher series. I have read the first book, but with it being a collection of short stories, it did put me off a little bit, and I do feel like I need to honestly just push through to get to the rest of the series and the core installments of the series. But this one is a prequel that I think follows Geralt when he's a child. I think it's when he's just graduated from Kaer Morhen. I can't remember how you pronounce it, but the place where they train the witches. He is a fresh graduate and it is set before the Witcher series actually starts. I do think that this would be a little bit of a more gentle reintroductory point to the Witcher series for me. Even though I haven't read this full series, I have watched all of the show that has Henry Cavill in it. I haven't watched any of the Liam Hemsworth ones, and I have also played the game, so I do have like a foundational knowledge of this world, and I'm hoping that this does serve as a good story if you are not super familiar with the series in book form, but I guess we'll find out. One that you are probably going to see coming up very soon, that's all the information I'm going to give you, is Quicksilver by Callie Hart. There are two reasons why I've included this on the TBR though. One is because I do think you're going to see it soon anyway, but one of the driving forces to pick this up this year and as soon as possible is because they have this one and also the sequel Brimstone in the editions that I actually want for half price at the minute at WH Smith's, and so I need to read this to see if I enjoy it so that I can go get the black editions with the metallic edges, which I know a lot of people don't like those, but I prefer it to this one. And I am a little bit salty because when I went to meet Kelly Hart, or I went to a talk, she didn't do a signing, they advertised it with the new edition, so I thought that's what I was going to get if I got a book with my ticket, and I didn't. I got this one, and honestly I think I'll be salty about it forever. I actually don't really know very much about this series. I know it's a very hyped romantasy series that a lot of people very quickly became obsessed with. I know that this guy here is called Kingfisher, and I think he's like one of those big baddies with a heart of gold, and the magic system in here somewhat revolves around metal. That's all the information I can give you, but hopefully I'll be finding out more very soon. And if you guys saw my very recent video wrapping up all of the 50 series that I somewhat made progress in, started, finished, or whatever in 2025, you will know that I massively dropped the ball on sequels last year. It's shameful. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go ahead and check out that video. So I obviously want to prioritize sequels this year. I want to be making more progress in series. So I decided to give myself a couple of easy wins on this TBR, and I've added 2 final books in series where the rest of the series is still fresh enough in my mind that I don't have to do any rereading to wrap these ones up. The first one is of course Human Rights by Juno Dawson, one of my most anticipated releases of last year, and I'm low-key annoyed that I didn't get to it last year, so we want to rectify that as soon as possible. This one is the final installment in a contemporary fantasy series that is set in the UK, and it is following a group of women who, when they were children, they formed a coven. The witches of this world are very well known. It's kind of low-key, but they have a big established network, and one of them is the High Priestess of Her Majesty's Royal Coven, which is like the official coven of witches in the UK. And she knows that there is a prophecy that the sullied child is going to summon a demon that will bring around the end of days, and she actually thinks that she's found the child that is going to be the catalyst to this prophecy. So she contacts her childhood friend who still lives in their hometown and asks her if she can rehabilitate this child, who is currently very volatile and non-communicative, so that they can hopefully subvert this prophecy. And then the last book that I'm going to be, well, hopefully this won't be the last book that I read in the year. I do actually plan to read more than just 10 books. But the last one we're going to be talking about today is 3 Shattered Souls by Mike Holland, which is the finale to the 5 Broken Blades series. So this one is kind of a very standard run-of-the-mill ensemble cast heist story that I really enjoyed in 2025, and once again I'm low-key disappointed that I didn't get to 3 Shattered Souls. You know, I am going to blame Dungeon Crawler Carl for that though, because the audio for this is full cast, so I prefer to listen to the audio, or at least listen and read at the same time. But for the last half of the year, I want to say, pretty much the only audiobooks I consumed were Dungeon Crawler Carl, and so I had no more time in my audio roster to listen to literally anything else. I do think I'm going to try and slot this in though when I finish the DCC book that I'm currently listening to. But this one is essentially 5 broken blades who are people who are down on their luck, don't have a lot going for them right now, but they are assembled and sent on a mission to assassinate the Emperor because they each possess a unique skill that makes them perfectly suited to do so. This has a lot of like really convenient romances, and it doesn't really push the boundaries of the genre, but I think if ensemble heist stories are something that you enjoy and you just kind of take this at face value, then you may also really enjoy it. Once again, do also recommend that audiobook. So those were 10 books that I'm very hopeful that I can get to in 2026. I feel like I do stand a good chance because, like I said, I've picked these for specific reasons, which actually makes it highly likely that these will be 10 books that I pick up. But down in my comments, please let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts, but also let me know a book that is at the top of your TBR to read in 2026. Is there a specific series that you want to tackle? Do you need to wrap anything up? Let me know down below. Once again, a big thank you to Rosetta Stone for sponsoring this one, and please don't forget that you can click on the exclusive link down in my description box to get yourself over 60% off an unlimited lifetime subscription that will give you access to all 25 of Rosetta Stone's languages. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you want to follow me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.